Hi everyone, Emily here from Emily Reads, and today I have for you my February wrap-up. So I know we still have a few days left in February. I'm filming this on Saturday, so the 25th, so I know there's a few days left, but I'm only 100 pages into The Great Hunt, and it's a 600 plus page book. I know I'm not going to finish that before the end of February, so I figured since I have a little time, I'm going to go ahead and film this wrap-up. So that being said, in February, I read 9 books for 3,537 pages read. Sorry, I've got my computer down below me. That's why I'm looking down. So 3,537 pages read. My average rating was 3.9 stars. I actually had 3 5-star books. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 4-star books and 1 3-star book, and then I did have a DNF. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first book I finished, Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson, and I read the bulk of this in January, but I had like 300 or so pages to go once February started. I loved this book. It's really hard to provide a good summary. So this book I gave 5 stars. So this is the first book in the Stormlight Archives by Brandon Sanderson. It's really hard to provide a good summary because there's so much that happens in this book. It's 1,001 pages long. But I loved, so we followed 4 perspectives. We have Sazeth, who is an assassin. We have Shallan, who is, she is a scholar and is an apprentice under Yasna, I believe is how you pronounce her name. We have Dalinar, who's an older army, like he's a prince, I guess, of the realm. Well, not of the realm, but he's a prince, I believe. And he is older, has a very much high sense of honor. And then we have Kaladin, who is a surgeon turned soldier turned slave working as a bridge crew member. I loved Kaladin. Like, I love his backstory. I love learning about him. I love his how he leads people. But then something happened with Dalinar towards the end of the book, and that I cannot say, but as soon as it happened, I was like, Dalinar all the way. And so I cannot wait to read more. And I almost immediately went to pick up Words of Radiance, and I was like, no, if I do that, I will burn out on big epic tomes is my fear. So I read some other books, and I want to follow Brandon Sanderson's publication order. So March I'll be reading Alloy of Law, but I cannot wait for the next installment. Like, I have to read it in April. It will happen. Super enjoyed this. Then the next book I read was Blood Rights by Jim Butcher, which this is the 6th book in the Dresden Files. And I, again, started this in January. And this kind of book was, Dresden Files books are usually kind of the books that I read as I like fall asleep when I'm in the midst of like a big, heavy fantasy read. I gave this 4 stars. And in this book, we follow Harry. His task is to figure out like who is leaving this like entropy curse against people on the set of an adult film. Now, we do not get, it's not graphic or anything, but what I liked about this book is we get more backstory about Harry and his family and his family connections. So that was what really intrigued me about this book. And I'm also curious to see, there's something that happens with Karen Murphy that I'm kind of curious to see how does that play out in future books. Then the next book I read was I DNF'd Us Against You by Frederick Bachman. Now, I had read Beartown in January, and I really wanted to read the next book. And so I started this, and I got about a quarter of the way through when I just realized it wasn't working for me. Like, it became to the point where I was like, I just don't care. I just did not care what happened to the characters. And the reason why I didn't care was Bachman has a very distinctive style where he shows a lot of the commentary he tells us a lot of the commentary rather than showing us. So rather than showing us through the characters' actions and deeds and thoughts and words, he tells us, like, and it's just commentary after commentary after commentary, trying to be, it, to me, it just I ended up feeling like it became pretentious. And that was irritating to me. And so I was just like, I'm done. I just don't care. And if I want, I will find the summary on the internet and I will read the summary on the internet to figure out what happens to all the characters. In addition, there's something I'm not a big fan of, like, this is the person's rise to stardom, and that kind of, it started beginning to go down that path. Like for like someone's rise to stardom in the music world, and we have the beginnings of that in this book, and that is never a trope that I enjoy. It irritates me. So this is the second book by Bachman that I've DNF'd. I DNF'd Anxious People in 2021, and now this, and I'm just wondering if he really is an author for me. Then the next book I read was Born a Crime by Trevor Noah, and I gave this 5 stars, which I know seems odd. Like, this is his memoir, and so that kind of seems odd, like giving someone's memoir a star rating. So here's what I'm rating it for. I'm rating it for, like, how readable was it? Did I enjoy reading it? And not only that, like, did it not only tell me information about his life, but it also gave me information about growing up in apartheid South Africa and post-apartheid South Africa, and the politics of that and the racial issues that surround that. And so that's where the rating is going. This book was poignant. It was beautiful. It was hard to read at times. It was uncomfortable to read at times. It was hysterical. There's a chapter about him. He bootlegged like music, and like he sold DVDs, or I'm sorry, he sold CDs that way, and in order for, like, people to learn the new dance moves, they kind of, like, had a dance crew, and there's a scene where, like, a top member of his dance crew goes to, like, a Jewish school, to compete at, like, this dance off. And that chapter, like, my jaw dropped, and then I just started laughing hysterically. And just, like, the miscommunication behind everything, and, like, just miscommunication, and, like, how cultural clashes result in things. It was a good chapter. His mom, I would love to meet his mom. She's like a force to be reckoned with. But it was so good and so readable. I read this book in a day. So, seriously, I totally recommend this book. And I'm also using this for my reading around the world, for South Africa. And then I read the Bromance Book Club. Excuse me. So this is book 1 in the Bromance Book Club series. And I've heard of this on What Should I Read Next, and Bogle's podcast. And I also heard of this as a recommendation through the BookTube Besties virtual reading retreat earlier in February. And this book is about Gavin, and he is a Major League Baseball player. And he finds out that his wife has been faking it in bed. for their entire marriage. And so, devastated and betrayed, he moves out, and then she says, I want a divorce. So he gets taken under the wing of this book club, and it's a group of men who read romance novels. And they use romance novels as like a manual to help them with their relationships with their wives and their girlfriends. And so they take him under his wing, or they take him under their wings and help him win his wife back. I thought this book was so funny, so cute and charming, and also full of like real people. Like the men in it were genuine men, not afraid to, well, they do kind of are afraid and kind of like hide the fact that they read romance novels. I'm sorry, asthmatic. But there's some just really good quotes. So, for example, one of the men in the book club says, modern romance novelists use the patriarchal society of old British aristocracy. Modern romance novelists use the patriarchal society of British aristocracy to explore the gender-based limitations placed on women today in both the professional and personal spheres. That bleep is feminist as bleep, like good stuff. Also, the backlash. So, and then someone else orders like a pumpkin spice latte, like they're meeting for one of their book club meetings, and he goes, the backlash against the PSL is the perfect example of how toxic masculinity permeates even the most mundane things in life. If masses of women like something, our society automatically begins to mock them. Just like romance novels. If women like them, they must be a joke, right? So I started liking the commentary that it makes too. So I, again, recommend this, gave this 5 stars. Then the next book is Ink and Bone, which Buddy read with Krista over at Books and Jams. And I gave this 3 stars. And honestly, it feels like I read 2 different books. The first half of the book was just kind of the setup, and it was really confusing. I'm not 100% sure about the magic system. I'm sorry. So this is Ink and Bone by Rachel Kane. This is the first book in the Great Library series. I need to back up there. And the book is about Jess Brightwell, who his family smuggles books. So this is the time. This is like the very near future. The Library of Alexandria did not burn down, and it controls books and knowledge, and it is illegal for people to own books. And the library storehouses all of the original copies of text. And Jess Brightwell's family is a family of smugglers that will try to take those original books and give them to other people, like at a high price. And his father sends him to the library to study, so that way they can kind of have like a spy on the inside and have knowledge of the inner workings. So the first half is kind of, setting up and him going off to the school. And we get some explanation of the magic system, but it's really kind of confusing. Like there's these people called the Obscurists, and I'm not really quite sure what their role are, but they're very special magical people. There's things called blanks, which is how like they communicate, and mirroring, and all of the stuff just didn't quite make sense to me. Like, why are you making copies of texts if people can't own books? So I don't know, maybe they were stored at other libraries. I don't know. So the magic system was confusing, and that was kind of like the first half of the book. Then the second half of the book picks up plot-wise, and now we finally do get tension and drama and conflict. So I felt like it's 2 separate books. So I go back and forth. Like 3 stars is good, 2 stars is meh for me. So I think I probably would rate it a 2.5 stars. I'm sad that I didn't like it as much as I wanted to because the concept is interesting. The covers are beautiful. I have books 2, 3, and 4 that I got dirt cheap at a library book sale, and they look brand new, and I wanted to continue on with the series, but I don't think that's going to happen. Then the next 2 books that I read were ebooks by Noelle Adams. She's a romance author. So the first one I read was Wrong Wedding, which is a reread. And that one I gave 4 stars. So, although I think I would bump it down to 3.5. So Summer has kind of been secretly in love with Carter all her life, but Carter kind of hasn't paid any attention to her. And he needs to save his father's business. And so she agrees to marry him so that way she could give him her trust money. And so he could use that money to save the family business. Then his father dies, and when they read the will, how it's written, he can't marry her. She actually has to marry his older brother, Lincoln. And she does not like Lincoln. Lincoln does not like her. And so it's kind of like an enemies to lovers trope, which I love. There was a problem that I had when, this is now going to be spoilery. Carter does finally fall in love with Summer, and Lincoln kind of steps back so that way Carter can have Summer, and Summer at this point doesn't want Carter, so she's devastated. And it's like, can you just ask what she wants? Can you please just ask what she wants? Shouldn't she have a say in who she ends up with? Why are you kind of deciding for her who she's going to end up with? Ask her who she wants. That was the big problem that I had. The next book that I read was another Noelle Adams, is The Chaperone. And this is part of book 4 in a series called Companions for Hire. So she works in an escort business, and she is hired by, I'm trying to remember our main character's name. Crap. Hold on. This is why I write things down in my planner. So Danny. So Danny is hired by Hugh to be a chaperone for his teenage daughter. So Hugh needs to go over to Italy for a month for work. And while he's at work, he wants to make sure that his daughter, who's a teenager, has someone to watch out for her, and also that can take her around and see the sights and do things with her so that she's not stuck in the house all day while he has to work. And so, of course, they fall in love. And I just liked it because it was a mature relationship. They did set up boundaries. There was a situation that happened with the daughter that was handled very well. And so that one I enjoyed more than Wrong Wedding. The next book I read was Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. This one I gave 4 stars too. And I wanted to like it more, and so I'm kind of disappointed. I don't think slice of life is a writing style that's for me. I tend to like things that have more plot. Robin Hobb, yes, has heavy characterization, and kind of, I would say, would lean a little bit towards slice of life because the plot is so slow, but there is a plot there. Okay. This is just straight up slice of life. And in this book, we follow Janie through 3 different husbands. She lives in the South in Florida in the 1920s, extreme poverty. And so I will say this, it was good to read just a different life. And I have a hard time wrapping my brain around. So that was good for me. There is heavy dialect in this book, which every time I picked up this book, I really struggled with, like, the first couple of pages getting into reading the dialect. I think if you're someone who can handle audiobooks, to either do like an immersion read where you listen and read at the same time, or just straight up listen to it, I think that might help. I really struggle with audiobooks. Even like immersion reading, I struggle with it. So that's why I did not do an immersion read. But it took me a while to finally get into my groove and really start enjoying it. There are just some beautiful, beautiful elements of prose in this book. There was just, when she describes her reaction to her second husband aging and the description of her loss of youth and that youthful innocence and sense of adventure and newness about life, that loss was just heartbreaking and beautiful. And then this is going to be kind of spoilery, but I'm not going to read it. There's just one quote at the very end that was just, for me, was one of the most beautiful quotes that I've read. And we're to just be spoilery, sorry, because I have to read it. Of course he wasn't dead. He could never be dead until she herself had finished feeling and thinking. And so for me, that was just beautiful to read, like, the people that we love aren't dead because they live on in our memories, in our thoughts, how we think about those memories and how we feel about those memories. So that was just beautiful for me. And then the last book I read was Undercover Bromance, which is the second book in the Bromance Book Club series. And this one follows Mac and Liv. And we've met both of them in the previous book. So Mac he was like the founder of the Bromance Book Club. And Liv is Taya's sister. Taya was our heroine from the first book. And so in this book, Liv is a pastry chef at a very high upscale restaurant in Nashville. The owner of the restaurant is a celebrity chef, and she is fired after she catches him in the act of sexually harassing one of her coworkers. And she decides that she needs to expose him and take him down. And so she turns to Mac for help. And he, of course, uses what he knows from reading romantic suspense thrillers to help her. And I enjoyed this book. I didn't enjoy it as much as the original book. One thing that I wished this book had, in the Bromance Book Club, there were excerpts from the novel that Gavin was reading at the time. And those excerpts paralleled what was happening in the book. This did not have any, until like the very end, it did not have any excerpts from like a romantic suspense thriller that Mac was reading. And so I wish that was in there, because I thought that would have been fun. And like, it added a sense of fun and funniness in it. Again, one character that I love is, they call him the Russian. His name is Vlad, but his nickname is the Russian because he's Russian. And he's just funny. And so I cannot wait to read his book, which I plan on reading in March, because I also checked that out from the library. And that is it. That is what I read in February. Let me know what your thoughts are, what you read this month. And if you've read any of these books, what your thoughts are on those books. And as always, happy reading. Please like and subscribe. Thanks.